Guys, welcome to WideAwakeNews Radio, hour number 2. I want to thank you, Gary Hendershot, and his guest tonight. Great program. I was able to listen to about the first half of it before I just work on some other material. I was able to get it all recorded, and so tonight we'll have it rebroadcast on YouTube. So if you weren't able to check it out, please do so. Look for it later on the Krabby Dog Tricks channel. We'll have it up and running. Okay. I'm going to bring on Don Harrold here in just a minute because he put out a video last week that, as soon as I saw it, and, actually, as soon as he let me know that he had put out a video and what the topic was, I was waiting for him to just get hammered on the topic. Now, I didn't see the video at that point, but later on he showed it to me, or I watched it and we talked about it, and he showed it to me. Private screening, Don Harrold showed me his video. But it made some absolutely brilliant points and got me to thinking again about things I've read in the past and Don alluded to in our conversation. And so at some point tonight in the program, I want to talk about Europe for a little bit first, but at some point tonight in the program, I want to try to break down is a gold-backed, silver-backed, piggy-backed, it really doesn't matter, any solution, a solution if it's still controlled by a bunch of criminal elite bankers? The answer is no. I don't care if they're using diamonds, rubies, gold. If they control the precious resource, whatever that may be, then guess what? We have the exact same thing we have now. It doesn't matter if it's robber barons at the turn of the century. It doesn't matter if it's Jamie Dimon. If they control, if we get rid of the Constitution and don't reinstitute Article 1, Section 8, where Congress determines value of money and they coin it, not a bunch of private banks, then it's meaningless. It doesn't matter at that point. It could be pebbles, but it'll be their pebbles. And if they control the pebbles, then you will end up losing. All right, we're going to talk about that as well as what I just uploaded a video about, which is I read an article today, and I'm going to get her on after the 16th of this month. Ellen Brown wrote an article. The title of it is Government by the Banks for the Banks, the ESM coup d'etat in Europe. Absolutely brilliant article, absolutely spot on, but it does not even come close to going far enough. Now, I briefly want to get into what happened Friday. We saw this massive rally. The markets, the indices were all up, 2.5%, 3%, 250 points on the Dow Jones. And what was it from? Well, it was from the 19th meeting of these European elite who were going to fix all the problems with the sovereign debt crisis that's embroiling the world right now. 19th meeting, they come together, they have a meeting. At the end of it, optimism reigns and the markets rally. Well, over the weekend, I was able to do a little investigating into what really happened over there and what the good news was all about. It was real simple. Angela Merkel, the president of Germany, chancellor of Germany, wherever she is of Germany, the head official in Germany, capitulated a little bit on what could be done with the ESM. For those of you who remember, we covered the ESM a year ago, European Stability Mechanism. It was onerous as it was written then. It just got a whole bunch worse. See, the plan is the same. It's just regurgitated, rehashed. It happened here first. Now it's happening there. What I'm talking about is the ESM was written over a year ago. The ESM, European Stability Mechanism. 700 billion euros. There's that number again, 700 billion. 700 billion euros that originally these member nations were going to pay into, and the money was going to go to governments who were affected because of sovereign debt, not to banks, to governments. It was going, and regardless if you feel that's socialist or whatever, the fact is it's pretty easy to sell when you could say, well, this money's going to go to the governments because allegedly the governments are representative governments of by and for the people. So, in effect, the money's going to go to the people through their government. Well, what happened on Friday was this capitulation of Merkel, where she said, well, I guess maybe we can use this money to go directly to the banks. Where have we heard this before? Troubled Asset Relief Program, TARP.
When it comes to the two,
$700 billion announced. We know now that it's more in the trillions of dollars. When it was initially announced, it was going to go to buy troubled assets, Troubled Asset Relief Program. Six-gun Hank Paulson comes out 2 days later and says, no. I know we have Congress approval on TARP, Troubled Asset Relief Program, but since I wrote it on a Post-it note, and it was vague at best, and gave me all the power in the free world, to the point where I have to go to Congress and get a special letter so that I can't be held to accountable for this down the road. I'm going to use it to do what I intended to do with it in the first place, which is save a bunch of financial institutions that, oh yeah, one of them he just happened to be the CEO of a few years prior, Goldman Sachs. So we see 700 billion turn into trillions upon trillions. We don't even know how much, probably will never know how much. We see Hank Paulson making a promise to use it to save the country by buying troubled assets so people don't lose their homes. Well, here we sit 5 years, 5 years later. Millions of people have lost their homes. Millions of people have lost their jobs. The too big to fail institutions are doing A-OK just fine. That coup d'etat occurred here in this country. See, and we're going to meld this into the program because it goes to the point of, do I care if I have gold money, silver money, whatever? I don't care. If the bankers control it, I don't have control over my own financial destiny. They do. They do. So what happened in Europe is the TARP plan happened in Europe. But it's not going to stop with Europe. It's not going to stop. They're going to get this ESM pushed through. These countries are going to sign on to it. And basically you can eradicate, forget about, do away with the 17 governments that are representative governments, allegedly, of these countries that make up the nations that use the euro. Those are going to go away, but it isn't going to stop with Europe and the United States. It will be put forward at that point a global crisis that cannot be solved unless we have a whatever. We can start making up acronyms for it now. The IMFer fund, whatever the case may be. At the end of this, we will be told we must give more power to fewer and fewer people to secure our own financial future so we don't go off the cliff. We can't go off the cliff together. Surely this one will fix the problem. And at the end of it, you end up nothing more than an indentured debt slave to the same people, the same exact scumbags who have a rotating door policy through our government and have rotating door policy throughout the governments of the world, who have bought and paid for the legislation that will lead to this point of total, complete crisis of reality. We can either understand this, spread this message, and wake up and affect change, real change. Understand that Anderson Cooper being gay isn't a story. Understand that the Supreme Court saying Obamacare can be a law, even though the Congress already made it a law 2 years ago. It isn't news. What news you need to be understanding and be spreading is the news that you are being sold down the river in order that a bunch of not government institutions, but private institutions can be your master. Plain and simple. This is it. They will be the masters of humanity, or we will stop them. There's no middle ground. All right, let's bring on our guest tonight, Don Harrold. Welcome back to the program, Don. I appreciate you taking time after a busy day, Monday, short week for traders, since I'm sure you're not working on the 4th, but I appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts with me. And I really do appreciate that video you put out because it really made me think and get back into. I rewatched The Secret of Oz 2-hour video. I rewatched that again. I did some more reading on how gold and silver, when it's not controlled by the people and it is controlled by the money changers, well, it's no different than any other fictitious fantasy currency. Welcome, Don.
Dude.
Yes, sir.
Are you serious? Anderson Cooper is gay?
Oh, I'm sorry. You don't have TV. Thank God you don't have TV. Yeah, that's the big news today, man. Anderson Cooper, Anderson 360, he's come out of the closet, and we're supposed to be shocked by this, or supposed to be, assuming this is news we should be concerned with.
Anderson Cooper 369.
Oh, my goodness. You were going there.
Yeah, I know. Couple things. The thing about gold, I want to talk about gold and then segue back into the Europe situation.
Absolutely. You run with it.
Well, the thing about gold is, and I'll take silver, because silver, man, people talk about silver all the time. We all have a problem with fiat money, right? And we all hate the fact that bankers take a cut, and that bankers they print the money with debt attached. And then to bring the money into existence, there's interest on top of it. And then that means, if let's say you take $100 and you got to pay 5% interest, Well, now somehow you've got to come up with 5% more just to get back to break even. And if it's compounding interest over 30 years, you got to come up with about $400 more over the next so many years. And no one likes that system, all right? So, now, if you go buy an ounce of silver at any retailer, and silver spot is at, let's say, 30 to make this simple, and they charge you $1.50 on top. Now you own something that you paid $31.50 for the moment you bought it is only worth 30. Now if you were to go sell it back, unless you find someone to sell it to at retail, if you wanted to sell it back, a dealer might pay you, instead of paying you $31.50, they might pay you, say, $29.50. So when you buy silver, unless silver or gold continue in an arc higher, it's exactly the same effect as fiat money. You're constantly having to chase performance. Now watch this. Let's say I buy silver at 31.5, and spot price goes to 31.5. I then sell it to someone for 31.5. I've broken even. That sounds great. But when they buy it at 31.5, what if silver spot drops down to where it was when I first bought it at 30? You follow me? So now silver spot's going nowhere. I'm flat, they're underwater, and the dealer they sell it to brings them under the water 50 cents more. So if you, and I've done spreadsheets on this, you can take an ounce of silver, have silver literally go nowhere at spot, and have dealers make out like bandits, and the people holding the silver end up with less and less. What happens is you end up having one guy with an ounce of silver and 10 guys anywhere with 0 to something less than an ounce of silver. And you really have to put pencil to paper to understand why it's important to not only look at it from what you're getting for the money you spend, but on which side of that equation you're on. It is not a slam dunk that buying precious metals makes you a genius.
Well, and let's make this real clear right now, because I know there's a couple schools of thought. There's probably multiple schools of thought, multiple camps on the topic. Now, Don, I know you have some metal. You know I have metal.
Absolutely.
Right, and let me tell you the reason I do. I don't treat it as a stock. I don't treat it as an investment. I treat it as I have some extra money. I think they're going to create more money, so I think I'm going to take these dollars now, turn it into whatever, silver, gold, and when they start creating more money, then my silver or gold is going to be worth more of these dollars. But I'm not looking at it as an investment vehicle. I'm looking at it as, well, it's going to be a representation of fiat currency, because it is. You don't buy it with gold. You don't buy gold with gold.
Yeah. You know who makes the money on all? I mean, I got in full disclosure. I also am gay. No, I'm just
Don Harrold gay. You heard it here first.
Outed myself. No, in full disclosure, I can just hear this now on YouTube.
It's recorded, buddy. It'll be posted today.
Going back in time, the first time I heard about silver and gold, I thought that was the answer to everything. And then, of course, the first time I listened to Ron Paul talk, I thought, well, there's the answer. It's clear, gold and silver, that's the only way. But the more I looked at it, the more I realized that the people that make money on all of these things are the people from whence it's produced. And it can be the miners, it could be the bankers, but it's never the people. I'm sorry, it's just not, especially if you monetize gold and silver, the people that are going to make the money on it are going to be the miners, and everybody else will be just exchanging it back and forth like bitcoins, which supposedly, eventually will be a currency. Someone's going to make the money on it, dude, and it could be silver, it can be gold, but your point about who controls it is exactly right.
When the government, give us a little bit of history here, and we'll segue back to Europe, I guess, in the second half, because we have about 5 minutes left. But, if we have a constitution in place, like the one I'm holding in my hand right now, and we value the words in this constitution and the thought that went into it by our forefathers, then we have to value the fact that Article 1, Section 8 plainly says, right, Congress shall coin money and determine the value thereof. But that doesn't mean your 1 ounce of gold is worth, $10 one day, and then 3 weeks later,
that's right.
That means, how long was an ounce of silver worth $20, Don Harrold?
Well, it was 100 years.
Yeah.
But during that time, that you had these so-called price stability, you also had some enormous depressions in this country, as bankers do what they always do, suck up the metal, put it in their coffers. Eventually, there's no currency for the people, and you're either having a depression or they're taking land and property. There's what they call it the Great Rape of 1870 or whatever. I mean, it's just, and so you've got to look at it and ask yourselves, and this is the primary question I ask people when they think about precious metals and monetizing it. Would you rather have gold and silver, or would you rather have the sack of groceries the gold and silver bought? I'd rather have the gold and silver. Are you crazy? And so now put yourself in the position of being a banker or one of our international creditors. Which would they rather have? The gold and silver or some worthless paper from the U.S.? They'd rather have the gold and silver. So you put yourself and your country in a position when you make your money something of real value, you put yourself in a position where you can be owned very quickly. And it's what's happened every time in history. What we need, by the way, is Congress to control and regulate the value of the currency, to print up a bunch of fiat money, take interest off of it, and keep gold and silver free floating so I can stack it.
Well, but you're talking about not only determining the value of it, but they're also determining and controlling the amount and the availability. And this has worked throughout history before, has it not?
Has what worked?
Where a governing body that has at least on the outside has the interest of the people at heart. This happened in Rome, where they used copper.
When they had copper in Rome, things were groovy.
Right.
Hundreds of years of groovy. Then they go to silver and gold, and things begin to slide. And I can tell you that every time in history gold is seen as the money, the next thing you know, the people are enslaved. And one more thing. If you want a real money, you need something that's basically worthless. You need something that people don't mind giving up simply as a marker to say, I gave you something that you'll promise to now give me something in return. If the thing you hand somebody is the value, people are going to choose the thing of value many times over the thing you promised them. I'll give you an example. In old days, like, in the 1850s, or earlier, way past the 1850s, obviously, say 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, a man was known by two things: his hot daughters that were virgins and his sheep and his cattle. So check it out. If someone came and they wanted something, the man would have a short supply of daughters and maybe more cattle and sheep. So guess what? That daughter was precious. The last thing you'd want to do is give up your daughter. That was your bargaining chip. Now, like it or not, that's the way it was. So they could have been trading in paper or seashells or tally sticks. It doesn't matter. If the thing backing the currency is your hot virgin daughter, brother, everybody wants the hot virgin daughter. So if you've got to make your currency something that you don't mind giving up. And there's a lot of ways you can come up with that. Non-debt-backed, non-interest, bearing fiat, that's one way to do it. One way to do it is copper or aluminum or whatever. But gold and silver, that's not the way. And by the way, and every time I say this, people are like, well, you hate gold and silver. No, I don't. Let it float.
Right. It's going to gold, silver, they're scarce. They're precious. It takes a lot of effort to dig them out of the ground. They're always going to be valuable. I mean, there's no argument that precious metals are just that. They're precious, and just like diamonds. Well, although we could talk about the rigging of the diamond market, but the gold, silver, and all metals, but especially gold and silver because it's a precious metal and an industrial metal. They're going to have value, but if we give something with limited supply that can be truly hoarded, and we'll see the same bankers pop up. It might take what? It might take, a couple generations. Sure. But at the end of it, they will say, you know what? We control it all. And when they want to buy it all for pennies on the dollar, they'll just restrict the flow of it. They can restrict the availability of it. And then there's not enough money in circulation in order for an economy to function. You have a depression. They come in and scoop it up.
Yeah. I'd like to give another example real quick. Let's say that you've got a farm. And you have chickens who give eggs and cows that give milk and pigs that, give nice pork ribs or whatever. And I am an attorney, and I am a rich attorney, and I'm in town, and I'm making a bunch of money, and I have gold and silver, and I go to you, and I say, here's my gold and my silver. I keep giving you gold and silver, something that's a finite resource that they cannot make more of. That's why it's so valuable. And you keep giving me eggs and pork and milk, eventually there could come a time when you've got the means of production and you've got the wealth. Now, in a fiat situation, money can be printed and circulated again and again and again, which some people say, well, that's our problem. Well, that's not our problem. Our problem is interest on the fiat. Our problem is who issues the fiat.
Right.
Our problem is fractional reserve banking, and our problem is Congress not controlling the currency.
Yeah, and we're going to get more into that because I did a video last night and I touched on this argument. And, of course, because I mentioned gold and silver, it was, I got a lot of, well, I want the government their hands off my money. The government hands aren't on your money. Private banks' hands are on your money. We're going to talk about this, and plus what's going on in Europe and how this financial coup d'etat, is sweeping the world with Don Harrold. Anderson knocking at my door. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. I'm your host, Charlie McGrath. Don Harrold is our guest. We're talking about fiat whatever. Fiat currency, fiat pebbles, fiat wampum, whatever. Is it really the fiat that's the problem, or who controls the fiat that's a problem? Don, you were giving us some examples before the break.
I mean, all I'm saying is that if you look at any example, if you step away from the emotional aspect of gold and silver, and you ask yourself questions about, okay, let's talk about in terms of real life. So in my pocket, I've got some gold dust and some silver doubloons or something, and I'm going to go down and I'm going to, go watch a movie or something. And do I really want to spend this money on Shrek 3? Or do I want to give up my silver stacking, for a Slurpee and a pack of smokes? I mean, I don't think a lot of people, when you get right down to it, because I'll tell you what, if they monetize gold and silver and it's floating around, I ain't never buying nothing ever again. Let's be real about this. If they monetize metal, you have a generation of people now who will go to their grave never buying anything and just stacking until they die. That's just the flat-out truth.
Let me ask you how you feel about, obviously I know your opinion from the video you put out with Peter Schiff, even though it wasn't Peter Schiff, and you weren't trying to be devious, you were just trying to make a point, and you certainly pointed out in this video that that it wasn't his words, it was a banker's words. But let me ask you how you feel about if we had a basket of commodities that backed a currency. It could be precious metals, it could be oil, it could be timber, I don't care, whatever the commodity, it could be food. Whatever the commodity.
Why would you do that?
Well, let me finish. But this currency, this fiat currency that would be created, backed by these impartial by these commodities, but it wasn't controlled by banking institutions. It was controlled by true representative government that were held by the rule of law.
Wait, who owns the oil? Who owns the wheat? Was it all nationalized? And do you trust it? Listen, let me ask you this. If you go to your neighbor and you say to your neighbor, I need you to mow my yard, and the neighbor says, okay, I'll mow your yard if you'll wash my car. I mean, there's nothing that it changes hands but the word of your neighbor.
Right.
So let's just say that your neighbor doesn't wash your car, or your neighbor doesn't, whatever it doesn't happen. That word means next time you won't do another transaction with them. Now, you could say, well, what was exchanged was work, but the effort expended is not going to be equal. It might take him 30 minutes to mow my yard. It might take me 15 minutes to wash his car. And there's all sorts of transactions that go on where there's not the kind of equity that you think you'd get with this basket of currency. You don't need that. You can simply hand someone a piece of paper that says, I'll mow your yard. There you have it. I mean, the idea that you got to back it with something is scary to me. Because once you start backing what you're trading, now there's a reason for you to collect the thing that's being traded and not use it to buy things. You follow me?
I do follow you.
Yeah.
I do follow you. And the people who are freaking out right now listening to you talk about currency that has no backing other than full faith and credit in individual, a country, nation, whatever, are saying right now, Charlie and Don are talking about fiat currencies in a positive light. But explain the difference in what you're talking about, where you have a fiat currency that isn't backed by anything other than full faith and credit, versus what we have now.
Well, I mean, look, the reason why everyone alive today thinks that fiat money is a disaster is because we've had 100 years of interest-bearing or money brought into existence with debt immediately. So if you live 100 years of seeing something one way and the word fiat is attached to it, and you watch enough Peter Schiff videos, then you can think, oh, okay, well, ipso facto, it must be a bad idea. No, it's a really good idea if you take interest out of it, and you take the issuance of it away from the bankers. Even Thomas Jefferson himself said there's a difference between fiat issued by the Congress and fiat issued by bankers. Bankers will bankrupt you, and government-issued fiat is a holy endeavor. And if you don't believe me, go read the letter to J.W. Epps in 1813. So, I mean, there's an enormous difference. And people need to step away, I think, from the emotional aspect of it and realize, and this is the kicker, the reason why, hey, Silver Stacker and Gold Bug, listen up. The reason your silver and gold is so valuable right now is thanks to the money printing. If there weren't no money printing, your silver and gold would be about worthless. Well, not worthless. It would not have made you uber wealthy over the last couple of years. You can thank the money printing. You can be thankful for Ben Bernanke that your silver is going through the roof. Now, if you want to have a strong currency, get rid of the interest. That's what's crippling the currency.
The notion that gold, silver, precious metals is an investment, let's get into that a little bit, and then we're going to jump to Europe. There's a lot of people in this community that are looking for a home run. They're looking to knock it out of the park. They're looking to get in at silver at 25 and get out at 1,000. But the premise behind all that is kind of twisted, because they're not talking about, they're talking about being anti-dollar, anti-fiat, anti-Federal Reserve, which I agree with that. But what we really need to be talking about is anti-private banker control. And when you are rooting for $25 to $1,000, you're rooting for fiat. You're rooting for the same exact system we have now.
And by the way, if silver gets to $1,000 an ounce, I saw a video today where Mike Maloney was in a limousine in Singapore chuckling about how silver was just guaranteed to go to $1,000 an ounce. And I thought, now wait a second. If silver's $1,000 an ounce, you better make sure you got barricades around your house, and you better make sure you weren't silver stacking on YouTube with your face on camera, because if it's $1,000 an ounce, a loaf of bread could be $50. And you better not be going to Walmart. You better be shacked up in your doomsday prepper tarp, or not tarp, but
bunker.
Bunker, yeah. I mean, the idea that $1,000 an ounce, you'll be like laughing all the way to the bank and buying houses in your dude. That's not going to happen. That will be doomsday. That won't be chuckling and laughing. That will be doomsday. And you better hope it doesn't happen.
Okay, last question on precious metals. I have it. I'm not selling it. I don't want to exchange it for something that I want to be destroyed, which is a private bank-issued fiat currency that is based in interest and controlled by a very select private. I'm not selling it into that. I don't want that to be in existence. I want a new form of currency. I want a real constitutional currency issued by the government and controlled. The quantity of it and the value to be determined by my true representatives, not by a bunch of bankers. So for that reason, I buy it. I believe that it is always going to have value, regardless of if we stay on this current system or we go to a fair, true constitutional system. It's going to have value. It has for 5,000 years. It is going to have value just because of its scarcity. What are the reasons that you, Don Harrold, have gold and silver?
Well, there are three reasons that I own or recommend others own any metals. One reason is because there is the chance that Mike Maloney, Max Kaiser, Bix Weir, and everybody else who believes in the chocolate mountain scenario could be right. I mean, so maybe you wake up tomorrow, there is a currency collapse, and you will have been the smartest guy in the world to have some gold and silver, because for a brief amount of time before it's confiscated, it'll be worth an awful lot. So that'd be an amazing, so it's an insurance policy. And you can judge how much of it you want to own as an insurance policy, doing some statistical analysis and all that. And you should read Nassim Taleb's books on the Black Swan, things like that, and just figure out, in a crazy meltdown scenario, how much do you want to have now as an insurance policy? Okay, number two, and some people say everything. I disagree with that, but whatever. Number two, you want to own it, and you want to buy it low so that maybe eventually somewhere down the road you can exchange it for other things. Not even fiat. Dude, if you got a bunch of gold stacked up and you know someone will take gold for a house or some land, there's a transaction. And in that case, you want to buy it low. And finally, there is a scenario in which they do monetize it, and there's a scenario in which the government will write you a check, or however it happens, for your silver, and the day they monetize it, you have a big stack of it, and bingo bango, you were the smartest guy on the block, and now whatever currency they come out with, you got a lot of it. So, I mean, there's lots of reasons to own it. Investing.
But you would agree before we go to our call, you would agree that silver, gold, precious metal in general, copper, zinc, they have value now, and they're going to continue to have value.
Anything that you can break down to its basis molecular form, I want to own it.
All right, we have a caller from Texas. Cheryl from Texas, thanks for calling. What is on your mind?
Hi, Charlie. I just wanted to let you know what my experience was today. I just went out to two gold buying places. One was at a high-end mall next to Macy's, and another one was in a strip shopping center. I had 2 gold coins, wanted to convert it to cash, and you just cannot believe what they wanted to pay me for it.
I want to hear. First of all, what were the gold coins?
Canadian Maple Leaf.
1 ounce?
0.999.
Were they the 1 ounce?
So I'm looking at spot. Spot is nearly $1,600 today when I left the house. And one place wanted to pay me $1,400, but started off at $1,100 per coin, and then jumped it up to $1,400 per coin.
Mm-hmm.
So that was $192 per. And then the other place was $150. They started off with $2,300 for 2 coins, and then they jumped it up to $2,900. So, I paid a fee to buy it, and now I have to pay a fee to sell it. So I'm just wondering, where the hell have I gone wrong?
Well, if you'd have bought those coins, if you'd have bought them when they were $800.
Well, honey, I didn't.
Well, then I would say don't sell them unless you need the money. Don't sell them.
Well, I do need the money. I just can't believe the variance in these local coin dealers, and I was just trying to reiterate what your guest is saying, that, it's not all that great if you're going to keep on getting all these expenses in order to...
Go ahead, Doc.
I was going to say to Cheryl that, a lot of people get involved in metals, and there's the allure of it, but what you find out is it's not as easy getting out of physical metal as you might have been led to believe. Now, you can call APMEX, and you can call Tolvin, Gainesville Coins, a lot of these outfits, but a lot of them have minimums, and you're going to pay shipping and insurance and stuff, and if you go local, you might be in a small town, and the only guy in your small town might give you $100 below spot, and that's all you're going to get. Yeah. It is not a slam dunk that you're going to win every time you buy precious metals. So I just think that people ought to... Yeah.
That's my point, yeah.
Sure, I would tell you this. I've sold some metal to a guy I've dealt with for years, and he's always been very fair, very close to spot. In some cases, was actually a little bit over. The other person that I've sold metal to is Gabe Elton, who sponsors this program.
Yes.
Just disclosure there. You can see his link on the front. Give him a call tomorrow, or email me after the program, info@wideawakenews.com, and I'll send you his contact information. I've sold him probably 200-300 ounces of silver, and he's never offered me less than the spot price of silver. I don't know.
I appreciate that, Charlie, and I will, but
okay.
I'm just saying that it's like you said, and I don't think most people who buy coins know how difficult it would be to convert it back to the fiat when you do need the money.
Well, what's unfortunate is it seems in this community there's a lot of people who've bought metal, like Don said, because of the allure of it. And, it's always, it seems it's a lot, you have a lot more people willing to sell you it when it comes time willing to sell you it. But when you go to sell it, you're usually in a position of you need to liquidate this metal and turn it into something that we abhor, which is, the U.S. dollar. And, these guys know this. They're always...
That's a huge penalty, Charlie. That's what I'm saying.
Penalty,
it's a huge penalty. $192 per coin? That's a lot of money.
Well, on a percent basis, if you buy silver, like you can go right now to a dealer like let's say APMEX, and let's say at APMEX you might pay, right now spot's 27.5, so let's say you pay 28.5 on a coin. Well, then they might be buying at 26.75 or something like that. So now you've got this spread of like 2.25 or almost 10%. That's not a small amount. That's a haircut that if you take often enough eats into any sort of gains that you might have had. So you really got to be careful.
Did you get into them fairly decent, Cheryl?
Yes, originally fairly decent, but $400 right now. That pays my electric and utility bills. You know what I mean?
All right. Shoot me an email. Shoot me an email after you get off the air, and I'll send Gabe an email explaining, he was a caller who called in and your situation, and then give him a call tomorrow and see what he can do for you. Hopefully he'll be able to get you right at spot or very near to it, so you're not taking such a big.
Thank you, Charlie.
loss.
You're a sweetheart as usual. I just wanted to let you know how difficult, or let your listeners know how difficult it is to get out of it if you need it.
Hey, that's what. Here's the deal. Don't know, and I've said this for years. Know exactly whoever you buy it from. Make that guy your friend or lady. Make that guy your friend so they know who you are when you call, because there could come a time where you're going to turn it into cash to get things that you need. So
and both of the sources that I purchased them from said they would do that. But that's registered mail. Go down to the post office. $15 to send off the letter, and 2 weeks, and yada yada blah blah. I'm just saying it's not the same as going down to the bank and if you had it in the bank and withdrawing it.
Mike Maloney would tell Cheryl, don't worry about it, just keep on stacking. Why do you need worthless fiat? I mean, a lot of the gold bugs would say that Cheryl is in league with the bankers. They'd say Cheryl is obviously
I just need to pay some bills. I just need to pay some bills.
Like you're like the rest of us, Cheryl. You need to, there's sometimes, we operate in this economy. There's nobody listening to me right now, no matter how much they hate the Federal Reserve, no matter how much they hate this system, that does not operate inside this economy. Nobody lives on a barter system or is using little notches of silver in order to put gas in their tank. So I understand. You need it. You need what you need to get in order to take care of yourself and your family. So
I need some shells.
There you go. You need some wampum.
Thanks, guys. I look forward to listening to the rest of your show.
All right, I'll respond to your email. So go ahead and get that sent, and I'll send you back a response tonight. Dawn, we have about 4 minutes left. You said you had. I'm going to skip all the hoopla. I'm going to go right to it during the break. You said you had an assessment of Europe that you don't think most people understand.
Yeah, and what most people don't understand what was going on in Europe. And wow, what a segue! Bam! It's like all of a sudden.
Now give me Europe. Boom.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the deal. What happened in Europe sounded like a big bailout. Things are going to be fine. Euro's going to get stronger. Okay. Now look, the ESM will be able to bail out Spain and Italy and their banks and all the other countries. All right. And they'll do this with $700 billion, which may, in theory, have one day. In theory, because get this, Charlie, the $700 billion includes these are euros.
Right.
Includes contributions from Spain and Italy.
Right.
These are the very countries that they're supposed to be bailing out.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's the most cockamamie, phony baloney headline. It looks like it's great in the headlines, but at the end of the day, they did nothing. It's like the Federal Reserve buying debt.
And it's even worse than that. It's even worse than that. And am I cutting you off? Did you have more you want to elaborate on?
No, that's it. I got nothing else. I'm thinking about
Article 8 of the ESM establishes 700 billion euros. That was the initial. This was a year ago when they set this up. 700 billion euros from member nations who sign on to this legislation. Article 10 kind of rewrites all that because it says the Board of Governors can change this amount as deemed necessary. So it's written right into this ESM that 700 billion isn't going to be enough. And who will decide what this amount will be? This board of unelected governors. Now, Article 9 of the same ESM says that ESM members irrevocably and unconditionally pledge to pay on demand the amount set by whom? The Board of Governors of the ESM.
It is ridiculous.
It's unobtainable, it is unsustainable, and it is a guaranteed failure on its face. But if you're conspiratorial in nature like I am, you see this for what it exactly is. You give complete and utter and total control to a non-elected body that is called the ESM, and we're going to call it the European Central Bank, we're going to call it Brussels, we can call it the Federal Reserve, whatever you want to call it. It's a non-elected group of individuals that will have total and complete domination over the 500 million people of Europe. And, again, I'm going to say this, and I get called out for this on occasion. We talk about Europe as being this far left socialist country. The takeover in the United States, patriot-loving, freedom-loving, freedom-spreading United States of America, we're so far swung the opposite direction of freedom that Europe is looking like a bastion of liberty compared to the United States because our complete and total banker takeover already took place. What we're seeing happening in Europe right now is to try to get them at the same level the United States is at, where you have a central bank, a central unelected governor's board deciding who lives, who dies, and what the economy is all about, and they have complete and total power. This is what they're trying to achieve in Europe, and that's why we haven't seen an end to this crisis. We've just seen, this is just one more, like I said, number 19 of the meetings. But they, I believe, will let full-scale sovereign debt woes hit the fan in order to implement something like some form of this ESM. Don Harrold.
Did you know that Tom Cruise and what's her name just divorced?
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Good news. Now she's on the market, and I'm just looking for a man.
She's looking for an ESM Board of Governor director.
I think you're single, too. So.
There you have it. All right, Don Harrold, thank you very much. I appreciate your insight. Appreciate the heat you're going to take for these videos. They're going to be on YouTube, as well as the one explaining...
I love gold and silver. I don't know what I would take heat for. It's a good idea. Own it. Get it. Just hope they don't control it.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming on. Guys, stay tuned for Jeff Rintz. He's coming up next. Tomorrow night, we will have Eric Lovely for hour number 1 and yours truly for hour number 2. Have a good night. Enjoy, Jeff. Peace.